and welcome back. This is the Gen Z Manifesto. Our business here ni kuongea, itutoke. And our question of tonight is, are we now closer to justice for the June 25th victims? Let's hear from you guys at home. Kuna some feedback we have. Edwin hapa anasema, according to this government, no justice unless we introduce a new government which is coming. When is it coming, Edwin? Kuna kitu tuambi. Anonymous, I suppose, anasema, gava inatucheza ufala. Wafanye kile walisema kwa manifesto bana. Dr. Ochong anasema, in Kenya, unfortunately, we are very far from getting any justice for the Gen Zs. But why is that the norm? Why is that the norm? Anonymous anasema, justice for Gen Z. Are we closer to it or not after the expose? Davis Kialika anasema, forget about justice in Kenya. It will be like getting blood out of a stone. And we know there's no blood on a stone. So, ni kama hapa anasema, imeturamba completely. I don't know. Felix anasema, hello, I'm from Eldoret. We are future generations. All right, Felix, we are. IPOA is just trying to save face, facing BBC's documentary. Na your story ya IPOA, we seriously have to look at that. And Kagena over there alitupatia statistics zao. Kags, as you take away the conversation now on your panel, please, guzia tena yo mambo ya IPOA.
Now it will be interesting. We have a disparity between the numbers zenye tunapata kutoka kwa gava and what we're getting from human rights organizations. Depending on who you trust more, you can choose which numbers to believe. And it is until we had a documentary airing very recently, that is yesterday, that we had IPOA coming out to the public and giving an update. Ya investigations zimefikia wapi. And before I ask my question, allow me to introduce my panelists on this side. So, over and over politically, tumekuwa tukisema a certain politician will be the Joshua who will save the country. Aifikishe Canaan. So with me I have Joshua Kimani. He is a legal practitioner as well as a human rights activist. Welcome very much, Joshua.
Thank you.
We also have Nerima Wako, who is the director,
yes.
Siasa Place, and also political analyst par excellence. So Nerima, allow me to start with you. Now that I'm asking a question related to the political class, kuna wale wanafikiria, or rather have argued so far, that the timing of the media to speak about the issue of Gen Z and the whole seeking of justice is illy placed and has evil timing. Do you agree with them?
I don't agree with them. I think, first of all, it's late. The fact that we're talking about this 10 months after that day, families have not been given any updates. There's been no compensation. There has been no accountability. No case has been completed. There's no convictions. It's absolutely late. And even when you look at the way the documentary was done, it had Kenyan journalists part of it. They couldn't share their names. That just shows you the kind of country that we live in, where they also had access to this evidence. When you talk about 5,000 images and videos, these are mainly images and videos from Kenyans. And they had a lot of fear to be able to articulate and show these things. I know journalists who are currently in hiding at the moment because they were involved in that expose. So I think it's perfect timing. Talking about timing is a waste of our time, and it's also a distraction. We need to focus on the issues. People lost their lives. We can tell who it was because bullets are numbered. Clearly the military was involved. Bunge should have been discussing a commission to look into that. They have wasted our time by trying to frame it as another country interfering with our politics.
All right. And Joshua, probably to pick your thought on the same, when we talk about how close are we to justice, what do you think? How close are we?
Thank you. In my own view, I think we are not any close to justice. Because when we speak about these issues of enforced disappearances, when we speak about people dying, clear murders happening, we have lost so many souls who we mourn today in so much pain and sorrow. And what we would expect is convictions, like my good friend Nerima is saying. But we have not seen any of that. Unfortunately, the institution that has been tasked with this, which is the IPOA, has been very slow at converting these investigations and forwarding them to the DPP for prosecution. So this loop and this whole chain is very slow. And if justice was indeed to be met, we would expect that indeed the government, through the presidency, should take immediate action into the investigations of this. But unfortunately, our constitution has been obliterated every now and then. And it is so sad because, unfortunately, we do not see any justice. Continuously, every day, they are denying, every day, no acceptance. Families have not been compensated. There is no closure from the families. Parents are still mourning their children, but the government is not coming out clearly and saying that we are here and this is what we have done and we are planning to do this. Unfortunately, it takes BBC for them to actually, for IPOA to come and actually tell us that we are this far. And when we look at the report they are giving us, they have not been able to really get any material translation of in sort of any conviction, you know. So that speaks to the fact that we are really far away from justice, and a lot has to be done to really make it efficient.
There's something that you've mentioned that I'd love to take you back to. You know, the conversion of these investigations to actual prosecutions. One would ask, si BBC washatuonyesha ni nani? Si mshtaki. Can that suffice?
Definitely, it may help, but it cannot suffice. This is because of the fact that we have institutions that are mandated to deal with this. And whenever we deal with issues of police and military, then IPOA comes into the picture. So it is upon the IPOA, and that is what the KDF was saying in its statement, that it has not received any requisition of information from IPOA or a request to investigate any of its members by IPOA. At the same time, when we look at this, then the IPOA, after it conducts the investigations, once it finds evidence that is capable of forming a case to answer, it forwards the case to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who then initiates the proceedings in the name of the state. And after the proceedings are done, they're taken to the court, and the court is the only agency in the country, or rather the only arm of government that can, say that a person is criminally liable for that. So unfortunately, this loop is very challenging because when you look at it, an institution like IPOA has really been understaffed. It is suffering a lot from lack of resources. So really it is very difficult for them to make formidable investigations against any person, which then makes it difficult for the DPP to receive anything so that they can be able to institute proceedings against all these people who are liable.
And Nerima, there's something that Joshua has mentioned when he talks about, IPOA being somehow not in a position to fully execute its mandate as per the investigations. IPOA itself has also cited non-cooperation between some of the witnesses and the police. From where you sit, is the system somehow curated in such a manner that it protects those in positions of authority?
Even when we look at our independent institutions, who funds them? When we see a lot of the resources even coming from the executive, but mainly donor money. That's another thing that people don't want to talk about. It's mainly the US that funds institutions such as those. And we've seen what's happened in the US in terms of a decline when it comes to aid. So it's also difficult to be able to have the resource, not only in terms of human capacity, even the willingness. What we're seeing is a collapse of our systems. Which institutions can we trust? Because even when you talk about Parliament itself, where you talk about ethics and anti-corruption, name any independent institution that we can trust. Right now, as Kenyan young people, I'm worried about that. It means that we have no defense mechanism to be able to protect our constitution. And that's the bigger concern here.
All right. And Linda, even as we continue with this conversation, in your side of the panel, we have someone. It would be important to raise this, that after the demonstrations of June 25th, he was among those who were picked by unknown assailants. I would be curious to know from where he sits, has he been served justice? That is for Joshua Okayo. Does he feel served justice?
Well, Okayo, briefly, perhaps you can tell us that briefly, do you feel like there is something that has been done since that incident in June 2024?
Nothing has been done. And probably need to maybe back what Joshua said in the name. IPOA is not understaffed.
Let me check your mic kindly. Yes.
Oh yeah, I was saying IPOA is not understaffed. Let's be clear. No one is working with that office. There's a time we had an engagement with people from IPOA.
You can
And-
begin.
Oh, let me begin. I'm saying I want to rebut what my friend Joshua, who's my namesake, has said, that IPOA may probably be understaffed. They're not understaffed. We have an institution that is not working and no one is interested in undertaking their role. What is happening is that IPOA stated that they would want the victims to come forward and tell them about their cases so that then they can investigate. And this is a question I posed to them sometime. Does IPOA want dead people to go and report to them that they were killed on this particular date so that then they can investigate the deaths of those that were killed? They are saying that they need people to come forward. They need victims like myself to come forward and explain to them. What about someone who's probably still nursing their wounds, or someone who's in the hospital and has not been able to pay, the hospital bills? Maybe someone who was amputated and they can no longer walk. What about that? They should look for a way to get to IPOA offices to report so that IPOA can undertake their role, their constitutional role. So really, as a person, I have not been, justice has not been served to me in any way. When I heard that they want me to go and report to them that I was abducted so that then they can start investigation, I said I'm not gonna do that. Because then what is their role? You see, we have very lazy officers in the office at IPOA who do not want to be proactive about what they've been put there to do. So IPOA is not working. But I think there is a point that we are passing really fast about, has justice been served for the general populace? Because many of us did not just walk to the streets, or we did not just run to the streets. There is something we were agitating for. And that point has not been brought forth very well. Number one, we wanted, of course, the trigger was reject Finance Bill 2024, because people had read it and there was nothing good for the people. But more importantly, people were talking about issues to do with scrapping the office of the funding of, or rather defunding the office of the First Lady, the Second Lady, and I think the wife to a Prime Cabinet Secretary. All right? We were fighting for doctors, intern doctors to be employed and JSS teachers to be employed. We were fighting for the government to publish audited report of how the illegal and legitimate housing levy has been used. We wanted that scrapped off as well. And we wanted to be told, how much have you used for this period of time? We were clamoring for change insofar as the rule of law is concerned. We wanted all court decisions to be respected. That has not been done. We wanted the CAS positions scrapped. Of course, there's a case in court, but the government is still fighting for that case. So that means they are determined to have CAS positions. And yet the people of Kenya said, we do not want those positions. It's salaries for no reason.
Thank you.
We wanted so many things. I mean, Linda, we should have more time so we can always talk about these issues.
I wish we had more time, Okayo, but
right?
we have an entire panel.
So Kenyans, just
yes.
let me finish.
Yes.
Kenyans were not just saying Ruto must go and going to the street and rejecting finance bill. No, there was so much more. Now, has justice been served? No. Because most of these issues that I've said, they have not been responded to.
Are we closer to justice? Yes.
Are we closer to justice? No.
Thank you.
Because does it take BBC for IPOA to know that they should investigate issues?
Absolutely.
So we are not closer to justice, but I can tell you, Kenyans can make that justice closer for themselves.
Absolutely.
If we make that decision. Thank you.
Yes, and perhaps, Ms. K, you can perhaps throw a question to your panelists on that end.
Ask a question to all of our panelists.
Yes.
They were purported to be, organized criminals. I want to know, are you organized criminals? Were you organized criminals for the people who went to the Mandamano? You went to Mandamano?
Of course I did.
Were you an organized criminal?
Of course. Do I look like a criminal?
You tell me.
It's far away. I don't know how someone can just sit and call people who are petitioning, picketing, asking for what belongs to them, asking for their country to be in order, called criminals. Do they even know the meaning of criminals? And do they know how to ascertain a criminal, the process to get a criminal? Today I'm so vile. I feel a lot of pain after watching the event in the BBC documentary, because do we even have a country? And are we talking about these things enough in a way that they should be? For example, this our parents and the older generation have left this thing for only Gen Zs to talk about it. Are we fighting for a country for ourselves alone? You are our parents, you brought us to this point. We invite you to come out, help foster this conversation moving forward. We really need to have our country as soon as now.
But let me ask
yes.
you, what do you think the government misunderstood about these generations' anger?
It is not this generation's anger. It is what the government is not doing. This government had a manifesto. It had what it's structured to do in the first 100 days. Up to date, they have done even way less than, they have not done anything in my opinion. Our government has been in the streets defending what they should do, planning on what they ought to have done, and trying to showcase how they'll do it, but they are not doing it in any way. This the government of William Ruto has become a hoax. People say reject finance bill. He proposes it, it continues to parliament, it is passed, and then the bill becomes law. And then he comes back again after people had now protested and got into parliament. Then he says that we've heard them and now we've listened. Now we are saying, let us remove it. And the parliamentarians, the people were elected by the citizens, come clapping and say, "Oye, hurrah, you have now made a good decision." And before then, they were all there in parliament trying to say, "I vote yes," confidently. And I am so pained. I am really pained with what we have as a country.
Yes. I know you've brought that picture of protests is happening outside parliament and parliamentarians are voting yes. But let's get to hear from Sophie. Sophie, you're not new here, but what do you think? Do you think you're closer to justice because you've been one of the front runners when it comes to fighting for Gen Z's rights?
Of course, we are very far from justice, Linda. And I would just like to pose a question to Kenyans. Why aren't we angry enough? And my question would also be, who benefited from this bloodshed? That is your personal homework as Kenyans. But Ms. Kahiro has asked, why is it the norm? It is the norm because respect for the rule of law in Kenya is an enigma. People do not respect the rule of law in this country. And that is why, as a person, I'm calling on the ICC to come to Kenya and open an investigation because Kenya is an active crime scene. An active crime scene where we're seeing bloodshed, where corruption is taking center stage in this country. And that is why we are asking them to come here and do that. And I would also like to allude to something she also said when she was beginning. She said that our president said that Kenya is a country that belongs to God. Well, I will allude to the Bible and I will go to the verse that is in Jeremiah 1 verse 6. And Jeremiah was a youth, and the Lord told him that I have set you over the nations to do what? To uproot. We as the youth of Kenya, we are going to uproot what? We will uproot corruption. We will uproot injustice. He was set over the nations to destroy. We shall destroy our killers. We shall destroy those who have taken it upon themselves to end our lives before our time. What shall we do again? We shall rebuild. How shall we rebuild? We shall rebuild by capturing political power. We shall occupy those positions, parliament, county assemblies, and we dare say we shall occupy even the executive positions, and we shall bring justice to this country. Lastly, I would like to say that they buried us, but they did not know that we were seeds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Even as we are in the spirit of church, we also have a representative right here. Perhaps you can introduce yourself and also tell us the role of church, especially when it comes to, this is almost a year now, 10 months. Is there any healing as you see? And what's the role of church in regards to bringing the nation together?
Thank you very much. Listening to all these, my fellow young people speak very passionately, tells us that we are still not yet there. There is still a lot that needs to be done in terms of healing. And, you know, healing, again, goes together with justice. We have to see the victims of the demonstrations get justice. And from an ecclesiastical point of view, I want to remind Kenyans that the church stood out in support of young people. let us also not forget that the church is very powerful as an institution, and it came out very strongly. Even prior to the demonstrations themselves, the church had begun conversations like, let's define our debt ceiling, everything that the Gen Zs were moving out speaking about. So the church still, as a society, because the whole society needs healing. So we need to open this conversation from inside out so that we can heal. Without speaking, we can't heal. That's why a program like this is very important, so that we can be able to air our grievances and be able to call out. Also, the other church leaders and heads of churches, like they came out very strongly during after the election, you know, to tell Kenyans and to urge Kenyans to stand with the government. I would also call upon them to also come out strongly and stand and call for justice for the people who lost their lives during the Gen Z demonstration.
Thank you so much, Ms. K.
Linda, I want to hear from Fidel over here. Hi, Fidel. Just shikilia here. We've had MPs now, one Peter Kaluma, another John Kerry. John Kerry, first of all, is saying that this whole BBC situation is pushing a British agenda. This is the same MP who said that the videos during Mandamano were AI. What comes to mind when you hear one of the leaders speak like this?
You know, you don't give chance to fools to listen to whatever they have to bring out from their mouth. I don't have time for small boys like Kaluma. Those are people who are not going to win their seats. We are ejecting them from office. And to speak on, I just want to give a rebuttal on whatever my senior here said. This church, these people we are calling pastors are fake, bana. Sasa, you receive donations from a president. You know, don't say that God also gives chances to thieves. God gave Ananias chance to show that he's a fool. He has given Kenyans chance to show that Ruto is a fool. Ruto is a fool, bana. How do you, we were looking for justice before even we came to this June 25th mess. We were speaking as students here, we were speaking of a bad funding model. The government never answered. They thought we were fools. We were speaking about health. People are dying in this nation. Yet an executive was passing a health system like SHA, which is a money tapping scheme for their own benefit. So let us not quote evil here. We have an executive that does not know what it's doing.
So Fidel, what would be your recommendation then? Since unasema hakuna job wanafanya. So now what? What do we do?
Recommendation yangu kama youth ni, let us strategize. The justice we want, it is us, ourselves, who are going to bring it. We cannot depend on a president who is appointing the people who are supposed to bring justice to us. We are in a country where the Chief Justice himself, the person who is supposed to bring justice, is crying for justice. So what will a commoner like me get if the Chief Justice is crying for justice? It is upon us as youths and as people of goodwill to strategize and put in the effort to ensure that we take into these positions. If we do not do that, then we give chance for crooks to manifest. That is why the government of the day is trying to fascinate fools which do not exist in our society. We are, as I finish, we are intelligent, but you see, the government cannot muzzle all of us in this space. Kama youths tutoke inje, and this is what I do. This is what I say as a youth. As youths, let us not commit what I call political masturbation.
Hey.
Before you come out, ensure you have your vote, you have your ID first, and you have your vote. If you do not know who you will vote to, we will give you names. But we, in the same regard, we will rig out youths who we know are master planners to ensure that this system comes back to place.
Thank you, Fidel. Linda, Fidel here has spoken very, you know.
Absolutely. You know, I love this conversation because it's going from this is the role of the church, this is not the role of the church, but well, we'll continue with the conversation. We are taking a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Don't go too far.